the things I did for drugs are heartbreaking to me. They're heartbreaking, from my granddad to my mum, my sisters, my brothers. It took me to some very, very dark times. I was happy to die on drugs in the streets. That's what I thought my life would amount to.
Yeah.
And that was rock bottom for me as well. That's another low time. And that's what drugs did for me. It changed the way that I feel about myself.
Yeah.
And the people around me.
Right, what's your name?
Dan.
How old are you?
I'm 35 years old.
And where are you from?
I'm from Rotherham.
Okay. So talk to us about your childhood then. What was it like? Did you grow up poor? Were you getting into trouble? How were things?
Childhood were, my younger childhood days were kind of cool, man. My dad was around, my mum, my sister. The younger years up to about the age of 10 were quite alright for me. School life were alright. We wasn't well off, but we wasn't poor at the same time. I always got what I needed: new clothes for school, etc. The younger years of my life were quite alright, to be fair. Yeah, there's not much really to say. School life were good for me. Got in a little bit of trouble here and there at school, but not serious.
Yeah, that's a common theme with addicts I've done interviews with. They always have a problem with authority. Would you say you fit in that?
Yeah, 100%. I want one for doing as I'm told, like by the teachers and whatnot. But I tend to be I was quite sly even at a young age. So when I was getting into trouble, it was more for things outside of, like, in classes and stuff. You know, it wasn't in the schoolyard and whatnot, fainting, different things like that. It wasn't a fact that I was naughty in class. I was quite good in class when I just sat there and got on with my work when I was quite young.
Yeah.
That all changed when I got to comprehensive school, though, when I got a bit older.
We'll go into that in a bit more later, yeah. So this video is about, obviously, being an addict. When did you first start taking drugs, I'll ask? When was the first drug?
I started taking drugs probably around 13-year-old.
Which was?
I started smoking cannabis at school. They were my comprehensive years, getting into the wrong crowd, picking my friends. Started smoking cannabis to fit in, really, to fit in with all the lads, cooler lads.
Did you instantly like it, or what was your thought straight away?
The first time I didn't like it. No, the first time we used to call it a whitey back in the day. I was ill. I was ill, man. I was throwing up. I was dizzy as hell. I even left a group of friends that I was with at the time and walked off because I didn't want them to see me like that. But quickly again, the next day, man, I was straight back at it again. I was trying to look cool for the guys, smoking again. And it was always to fit in with all the people. I've always had an acceptance thing inside of me that I've never been able to shake.
So how did that progress then? So you say you started taking drugs to fit in with people. When did it start turning into, actually, I like this, I'm not doing it for anyone else, I'm doing it for myself now?
I quite quickly, to be fair, maybe a couple of weeks in, I started to realise the effect of it. It made me calmer, it made me more confident. I was less anxious around people.
Yeah.
I could easily put the mask on and fit in with certain crowds.
A lot of people say it like dims the voices in your head. You know what I mean? Would you agree with that?
100%. I mean, at that time it wasn't really about the voices for me, but I used cannabis for a long time, and it quickly became about, like I said, not being anxious, being more confident, being able to speak more clearly. You see, so yeah, you can say it dimmed the voices in my head, the ones that told me that I won't fit in, people won't like me. You know, it were a miracle drug for me at that young age to fit in with a crowd.
Yeah, this is jumping ahead, but people, addicts in particular, say that they don't like. Some people say they like drugs. Some people say they hate drugs. I don't know, what are your thoughts on weed, even being this clean today? What would you say you think about it?
Do I think I'm a cannabis person myself. I think it has a lot of benefits, but it's not for everybody. I wouldn't promote anybody smoking cannabis as I do believe it is a gateway drug to other drugs.
Yeah.
You'll find out a bit more how it did it with me. But cannabis is probably the biggest one that I miss.
Yeah.
Out of all the drugs that I have taken through my life, yeah.
So talk to us about how things progress then, going from cannabis to harder drugs.
Well, I've got to explain a bit about my life to do that, to be fair, because cannabis helped me fit into a circle of friends, and my circle of friends is what progressed with my addiction and lifestyle choices all the way up till not many years ago. So the group of friends that I was knocking about with at the time was into crime, small petty crimes, car thefts, along those lines, and they were the guys that I looked up to at them times, selling cannabis, different stuff like that. So quickly, crime became another drug for me. It were the adrenaline rush, the not getting caught. Crime was like also a drug that took part in my life. It were excitement for me. It were a way of fitting in. It were a way of looking good to other people. There are mistakes and a lot of stuff that I regret from my early years for doing things for people that don't talk to me, or I haven't seen for many years, and they never cared for me. I just craved their attention. So cannabis led me to do that quite early on. It were around early 2000s. So my progression then started going to illegal raves, mushrooms, ecstasy, LSD, just party drugs really is the progression it took for me, drinking in parks and getting up to no good really. So by the time I was like 15, 16, I tried a lot of these drugs already. So from being 13 to 16, the progression had already really lifted off.
Would you say that's addiction? Would you say you were trying to search for higher highs, or were you just trying to fit in with everyone else?
No, by that time I was looking for my next high. It was quickly apparent that I could go to a party and I was the one always going on for 2 days, 3 days. Some of my friends who was in my circle at the time might just take it on a Friday night. They'd be alright on a Saturday. Me, I'm going till Sunday night, Monday, Tuesday, depends when it stopped. I was always looking for that next high by the time I did 16.
So you were already showing signs of addiction at that young age, really, weren't you?
Most definitely. I think I can remember a time, if I look back now, not knowing it then, my sister and I, we got a pack of sweets. And I ate this pack of sweets and like going around the supermarket. But when we got in the car, I was asking for her sweets. So if I were to trace my addiction back then, I was already quite addicted to things well before drugs came into my life. I believe I was born an addict. I was addicted to that next pair of trainers because my friends had them. To fit in, and I think addiction started quite early on for me.
So we'll go into the life as an addict then. What would you say your primary poison was? If you had all the drugs laid up in front of you, which one are you going to first?
Having been clean for multiple years, it's an hard one to comment on that because I didn't really have a drug of choice. I liked the effects of all drugs. Heroin and crack cocaine was where I finished off. That was the end of my addiction using years that trapped me into the lifestyle. I was always one of them addicts that said, I don't sniff cocaine, me, I just take ecstasy. I don't smoke crack, me, I only sniff a bit of cocaine. Or I'll never smoke heroin, or I'll never inject heroin. And deep down I knew that's where my life were gonna go to be fair. It were only a matter of time because I was always looking for that next high. It were heroin trapped me, but all drugs for me were anything to make me feel different from who I was. Because as a person I wasn't very confident without having a substance in me. I wasn't very friendly. I was quite isolated. I felt a lot. I was deep in feelings, in fear, and that's what drugs did for me. It changed the way that I feel about myself and the people around me. Yeah.
How long would you say your addiction lasted then? when would you claim yourself as an addict? I know you said you were trying to get a high at 16.
Yes.
So what would you say that was the start of your addiction?
I'd say around 16, yeah, when I started taking ecstasy and different stuff is when I realised, do you know what? I think I was starting to show signs of problems. I wouldn't have said that I were an addict exactly in my head and said, think, do you know what, I need help until maybe I hit 26.
Well, that's the fine line of a functioning addict and a non-functioning addict. I think you'd say 26 is when you were starting to be non-functioning.
Yes, yeah, 100%.
I'd say you were a functioning addict because you could, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. Yeah, functioning addict is.
You could sustain your life. It wasn't really.
If I'm honest, my life wasn't very sustainable back in 16, 17. Went to prison very early. My life became quickly unmanageable thanks to drugs and crime and the situations I was in. So now I can trace it back, but I'd say like at 16 I were getting toward, at 26 I was getting to my rock bottom, 16 I was already kind of addicted to that next high.
So how many years are we talking?
I have to count it, so 15, probably about 17 years.
Yeah.
17 years in active addiction.
So talk to us then about the average day in addiction for you. We'll say when you were around 26 years old, what was your average day looking like?
Well, it was grim, is the word to say. It was a dark period of my life, especially around the middle age of my 20s. I'd already become a heroin addict at 21, although I did manage to get clean and stay off it for a number of years. To get back on it when I was like 25. But it was dark, it was lonely, it was scary. But what I'd become by the time I did 26 was a horrible, thoughtless, uncaring, disgusting human being by the time I got to that age. It was dark, it was lonely, like I said.
What would you be getting up to in them times?
Them times I was with a bad crowd of people. I was into selling Class A drugs. I was using heroin and crack cocaine. I was in and out of prison. Hell of a lot through my 20s. A hell of a lot. I was shoplifting, stealing from my parents.
So is that how you'd started then? You'd wake up, rattling, probably from heroin withdrawal.
Indeed,
would that be the first thing you'd be thinking of?
That'd be the first thing I'd be thinking of. The part of selling drugs was the fact that you didn't wake up like that, but quickly nobody wanted to give me any drugs to sell. Because I was an addict and I just smoked everything I ever got. But yeah, rattling, waking up in the morning is the worst feeling in the world. It's terrible. Especially if you've got no money and you can't function, you have to say go shoplifting. The things I did for drugs are heartbreaking to me. They're heartbreaking, from my granddad to my mum, my sisters, my brothers. It took me to some very, very dark times, and the rattling, I can't describe how you feel when you're rattling. It's quite indescribable for me. It is. But that's what the days looked like for me. It was a constant chase of waking up, rattling, having to find something. Yeah, having no choice but to find some money somehow to score, to take away that rattle. Yeah. But once you put one in, I continued throughout that day always.
From the interviews I've done with other people, it seems the cycle in the height of your addiction is anything to get money, and then score your drugs, take it round that cycle.
Yeah, 10 cycles a day, or how many times?
I mean, shoplifting, burglary, selling drugs, but obviously, like you said,
yep.
If you're an addict, then drugs aren't being sold, are they?
They're not being sold, no. You probably have a period where you don't even have to shoplift because you're just going to smoke it.
Yeah.
But you're very true, man. From what you learn from other addicts, that cycle might go on 6-7 times a day. You might have committed 6-7 shoplifts a day. You might have done 2 burglaries or what have you, and quickly, if you average that over a year, That's a lot of crime. It's a lot of crime.
So talk to us then about the lowest point of your addiction then.
I've had a lot of low points in my addiction. A lot of what I thought were rock bottoms. As I've said, stealing from family, another all-time low that I clocked onto pretty early. Being homeless in town centres with no food. Having guys from takeaways feeding me at the end of the night. It's the only food source that I had all week because the only thing that I ever wanted was drugs, more drugs, to take the rattle away. I've had cold pizzas off floors. I've said this in another interview with you. I've had cold pizzas off floors when I've seen people on nights out front. I've had family members walk past me as I've been high on spice in town, passed out on the floor. The prison cell, always the first night, I don't care what anyone says, the first night in prison is always a rock bottom when you realise, hang on, I'm back in jail. You know, that door shuts. And there's always a tear to your eye, and there's always a sense of, I'm alone again, I'm left here, dark, cold room, you know. It comes familiar for me though, it came familiar for me. And that's another rock bottom of mine, is I was so happy in that addiction. With going to prison, with stealing, and we've been homeless, it was just normal. And that's another rock bottom for me, even getting clean and looking back at it. That's another part of the work that I do, of my step one, is looking back at them times when I was happy to do that. I was happy to die on drugs in the streets. That's what I thought my life would amount to. And that was rock bottom for me as well. That's another low time.
Right, I'm going to ask you a stupid question. Talking about all them rock bottoms, why did it take to, how long, when did you first come here? 29?
2020.
So
29 years.
29 years old, Why didn't you come earlier? You've just talked about all them rock bottoms. Why didn't you stop taking drugs? What was the reason you carried on?
There is a lot of drugs around in every area of our country, but there is not a lot of help. The place that I did find I didn't know about, the programs that we work throughout the treatment centres, I didn't know about. There's not enough help out there. There's not enough advertisement for help out there. Not enough places to go to get the help out there. Even in prison, where prison workers are supposed to help you rehabilitate, come out with somewhere to live. You used to come out homeless, back on the streets. You'd have no choice but to use, because you can't survive on the streets with nothing without taking something. So all the rock bottoms, I knew I needed help quite early on. I just didn't know where to get it. It wasn't until I found this treatment centre that saved my life.
So it was unheard of, really, getting sober.
Yes.
And there's this big stigma that even if you could get sober, life's just never going to be as good as when you're chasing that high or committing crimes, you know what I mean?
That's true, yeah.
Would you agree with that? Would you say life's better on drugs and always being paranoid? What would you say?
No, never. Life in recovery, even the worst times of recovery, the worst days that I've had, where my head's on me and I feel remorseful or resentful or whatnot, is not even close to the best day in my using addiction. So the high that I get from life now is phenomenal compared to the high that drugs gave me. Just the fact that I'm clean today makes me high. It makes me... today's life is something that I never dreamt of, and like you just said, it's unheard of. It was unheard of that people recover from taking drugs. I've got, I'd say, 50 different friends or acquaintances that have died in the last 5 years since I've been in recovery. And it's still dropping now. A lot of people that I used to hang around with are dead and died in addiction. I don't know why I was the one that got out, and I thank God for that every day. But today's beautiful, man. It's beautiful. Recovery is so beautiful. Yes.
That being said, would you have changed anything about your life, about your addiction, about your crimes?
Personally, myself, I regret a lot of the stuff that I've done, but I wouldn't change. And if you got a genie bottle now and you gave me 3 wishes, I won't change any of my life. I won't change one bit of it, because maybe then I won't be the person that I am today, the caring person that I've become, driven, willing to help other people come out of addiction. All that is experience for me, so that helps me do my job today. I am more than qualified to help other people. There are people out there that work jobs, that go to university, but you can't get lived experience like I have today.
Yeah, it takes a lot of violence to become gentle, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
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 Right. So, talk to us about your recovery then. What was your moment you found recovery? What caused you to find that? What was your situation?
Well known story actually. So there was a drugs worker in a prison I was in. That said to me, look, I've got a place where you can go. I said, oh, that's cool. I need the help. Let's do it. 3 weeks before release, I got a phone call. Well, the drug worker came to me after she got a phone call, and she said, the bed's gone. You're not going to be able to go there. I'm going to try and sort something else out with you. And I quickly knew, I'd been in and out of that prison system, that, you know what, there's not going to be anything else.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to lie to you, I needed the help. I was desperate then, so I cried. I went back to my pad, I cried and I prayed. Now, I always prayed when I was in a police cell and I wanted to get out the next day, and I was like on my hands and knees, God, give me one more chance, man, don't send me to jail. But I wasn't a religious guy. Now, in that pad, I got on my hands and knees and I prayed. I did that for days upon days, and 3 days before my release, the treatment centre rung back and said, oh, do you know what, the bed's come available, they can come. And at that moment, something changed inside of me. I was willing to give anything a chance. So yeah, I found treatment, and you know, the addict in me, this is how crazy it is, I made excuses to get away from probation, to use before I can. Because I wanted to use that one last time. That one last time was a saving grace for me, because there was nothing, it showed me before I came, there was nothing out there for me. Now, if I didn't turn up to the treatment centre, I was getting recalled back to prison. Sorry. I was getting recalled back to prison, so I found my way here, and I've never looked back. I found that in early year 2020, just before COVID. So I came out of prison, locked up, from being locked up, and got locked down.
Yeah.
And COVID was a good year for me. It was a very good year for me. I couldn't go anywhere, I couldn't score. I had a lot of time to sit and be me.
Yeah.
So recovery was good for me.
So there was no stranger to you being locked down, were it?
No stranger. To be fair, man, I enjoyed spending time with the guys in the treatment centre, having barbecues. It really helped me see a different way of life in COVID. I know it was a downfall for a lot of people, but for me, it was what made me.
That's interesting. I would have thought for you that you came into recovery not taking it seriously. I thought that you were using it as a blag to get out of prison. Was that the case, or would you say that you were?
When I came into recovery, when I first, I wanted to come to the treatment centre, so I wasn't using it as a blag. Now, when I got to the treatment centre, maybe I did blag my way through it. I have been lucky enough to have a lot of spiritual experiences along my journey in the first couple of years of recovery. And from the programme that I work, the 12-step programme I work, that's what we look for. There's been signs all around me, and I have had some unbelievable moments where signs have fell off walls that have been stuck there for years and landed in my hands that says spiritual growth and different things. So there's been a lot of like, maybe I was blagging it a little bit. Maybe I didn't really know what recovery meant or what recovery was, so I didn't really know what to do. But I sit here today glad that I went through all them experiences as well, do you know. Yeah.
So with all the experience you've got in life and addiction, what would you say to someone that's out there now, still in that trap that you were in, still rattling, still trying to score money to get drugs, in that cycle? What would you say to them?
If I can recover, anyone can recover. I was lower. I couldn't get any lower in society. So it doesn't matter how deep into addiction you are, what challenges you face now, recovery is possible. There are places that are a lot more publicly known now where you can go on and find help. Drug services can always refer you to them places, and it's not an easy decision to make, that one. This is a lifestyle choice. In order to find change, it starts within yourself. I can continue making excuses that there wasn't no advertisement of people getting well. But the bottom line of it is I didn't want to change. It starts within. And if you want to change, there is hope out there, and it's possible. It's possible, man. It's worth it. It's worth it. What I have in my life today is unbelievable. It's peace, serenity. I have good family. I have my newborn son. I don't worry about money. I don't chase drugs. I get to work with other addicts, helping other addicts recover. It's possible. It's always possible, and it's so rewarding in doing so. There's no life out there. The three choices you have in addiction is jails, institutions, and death. Now I did two of them. I don't fancy dying. You know, I knew I was destined to do something with my life, and not just waste it in addiction. And if people are feeling the same, waking up, rattling in the same situations, and they can relate to this a little bit, then recovery is possible. All you got to do is reach out.
Yeah.